I looked at the video playing on my phone and couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was footage from our home security cameras showing our bedroom. I have an app on my phone that lets me see what's happening at home when I'm not there. In the video, I saw my husband with another woman. They seemed very close, like more than just friends. Then, I heard their voices. You sure she doesn't suspect anything? Yeah. I've been following your instructions exactly. She has no idea. It's going perfectly. I can't believe it. They laughed together. Then they playfully got onto the bed. I couldn't believe it. The woman with my husband was actually my own sister. My name is Nancy Hadley. I'm 50 years old. My husband David is turning 55 this year. We've been married for 20 years and we don't have any children. We used to have a comfortable life because we both worked. But things changed about 10 years ago when David was diagnosed with early onset dementia. As time passed, David's memory problems got worse. He started forgetting important meetings with clients and even how to do his job. Work became really hard for him, and everyday tasks became a struggle. He'd forget where he put things, how to dress himself. And he'd often get lost and bump into things because he couldn't remember directions. Once, he even left the kettle on, which nearly caused a fire. So David and I decided to ask my sister, Anne, for help. She runs a care home, so we trusted her advice. We took David to a hospital she recommended for tests, and that's when the doctors told us he had early onset dementia. Because of this, David had to stop working, and now we have a caregiver from Anne's facility come to our home twice a week to help out. Nowadays, I'm the one bringing in the money for our family, working hard every day, I said with a sigh. Nancy, how's David holding up? It was the day our regular caregiver, Ms. Johnson, came over. Annie came along with her. And you came too. He's your husband after all, so I'm worried too. Ever since we started relying on Anne's help, she would often come over before I went to work. She's been looking after David like a brother ever since we got married, because she always wanted a big brother when we were younger. She was really upset when David was diagnosed with dementia, even though she was supposed to be busy with work herself. I really appreciate her checking in on us like this. I'm so grateful to Anne and Ms. Johnson for helping me take care of David while I'm at work. If I didn't have my job, we'd have money problems, so I'm really thankful for them. But they can't come on weekends, so I'm the only one taking care of David then. I'm working during the week and looking after David on weekends, and I hardly have any time for myself. I didn't realize it before, but I must be really tired, I explained. A nurse who knew me from the hospital where I took David for his checkups noticed how tired I looked. Mrs. Hadley, taking care of your husband is tough, but you need some time for yourself to rest. You're right. I know that. I could ask Anne and Ms. Johnson for help if I really needed it, but I don't want to bother them anymore. Oh, by the way, there's a new nurse here who used to work at a dementia hospital in New York. Maybe she can offer some help. See, there she is, the nurse pointed out. When I followed the nurse's gesture, I couldn't believe what I saw. It was Amy, my best friend from college. Amy looked just as surprised as I felt. We hugged each other tightly, overjoyed to be reunited. Amy, who used to play softball in college, still looked sharp with her neat short haircut. Nancy, you look exactly the same. And you haven't changed a bit, Amy. I'm so happy to see you. Amy shared that she had waited for her kids to grow up, ended her marriage, and come back to our hometown. Just tell me when you're free for a coffee, she suggested. When David finished his test and came out of the examination room in his wheelchair, Amy seemed taken aback. Oh, this is my husband, David. It feels like forever since we got married. Yep, it's been quite a while, I agreed. Amy, crouching down to David's eye level in the wheelchair, stopped for a moment. Is everything okay? I'm sorry, David. We met at your wedding once. Really? I'm counting on you for future care. Thanks in advance. David smiled at her and replied. Amy seemed to be studying David with a thoughtful expression. Maybe seeing my confusion, she stood up with a smile. I've looked after many patients like your husband before. So, if you ever need advice, I'm here for you. I think I can help, Amy offered. Yeah, I'll definitely count on you. Thanks, Amy. We waved goodbye. After that, I bumped into Amy several times, like when I went to pick up David's medicine or when his health worsened. Each time, Amy looked at me with worry, but I pretended not to notice and shrugged it off. A few months after reconnecting with Amy, David and I went to the hospital together. Just as David was called in for his examination, I heard someone call my name. When I turned around, there was Amy, looking serious. Amy, is everything okay? David just went in for his exam. Can we talk for a moment? Yeah, sure, Amy replied, leading me to a counseling room. Nancy, how are you managing with David? And are you worried about me? Thanks, I began, discussing David's recent health and how the constant caregiving was affecting me physically. Amy listened closely, and I thought she was simply concerned about my well-being. But then she said something unexpected. Actually, Nancy. What she told me next was hard to believe. About a week before we met again, Amy started, recounting a shopping trip where she saw Anne with a man she recognized. Anne's face was familiar as my sister, but Amy also thought she recognized the man. When Amy approached and Anne introduced him as her boyfriend, it wasn't until we met again at the hospital that I realized it was David, your husband. It all seemed so confusing. That's really surprising. No wonder you seemed puzzled at the time, I remarked. Amy explained that she had seen Anne and David together in town a week before we crossed paths again. However, David didn't seem to notice Amy's presence at all. I looked quite different then. I had long hair and wore glasses. That might explain why he didn't recognize me, but still. Also, there's something else bothering me, Amy continued. She noticed that David's behavior at the hospital didn't match someone with dementia. It felt unnatural, almost like someone pretending to have dementia. The man I saw in town was walking confidently, speaking clearly. He seemed perfectly healthy. Could there have been a mix-up? Maybe you mistook him for someone else? I don't think so. You know, David has those distinct moles under his right eye, right? The man with Anne had them too. It's kind of a distinctive feature for a guy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about your husband like that. Amy apologized, realizing her comment might have been inappropriate. But it's true, David does have those moles. It's not common to find someone else with the same face and moles in the same spot. So could it be that David has been pretending to have dementia for 10 years and is having an affair with Anne? It was a shocking idea, but Amy seemed sincere. Honestly, I don't think this hospital is very good, Amy confessed. The doctors here aren't great, and I've heard some bad rumors too. Doesn't it seem odd that they have so many patients? So, I really think you should get David properly checked to see if he really has dementia, Amy said, looking serious. Amy's words struck me deeply. I went to a big store and bought a home security camera. I placed it in hidden spots in the living room and bedroom to secretly record what was happening while I was at work. I set it up to watch on my smartphone and checked in during breaks. To my surprise, David's behavior on camera was different from what he showed me. He didn't seem confused or lost. He was living quite normally. Plus, when Miss Johnson, who had asked to care for David, arrived, there was no sign of her taking care of him. I also discovered that Anne had been visiting my house frequently while I was away. Their conversations were clearly recorded on the footage. You're not getting caught pretending to have dementia, right, David? Anne asked. Yeah, pretending not to know the date or where things are is working perfectly, just like Anne suggested. Acting like I can't write or go outside, and mixing up day and night, seems to be fooling Nancy. She's trusting, so she won't suspect a thing. And as for Miss Johnson, she's fine. She's a single mom and needs the money. I've been paying her more, and she's staying quiet, David explained. They laughed together, flirted, and then went to the bedroom. I was stunned when I saw the footage. I couldn't believe my own sister and husband were scheming behind my back. But the proof was right there on the camera. I felt lost, confronted with the undeniable truth. A few days later, I felt the need to speak with Miss Johnson, who had been looking after David. When I reached out to her, she said she could meet the following Saturday. I went to her apartment and showed her the footage. She looked defeated and apologized tearfully, admitting, "What you see in this footage is the truth. I've been lying to you all this time, and I'm truly sorry. I don't have a license, and I was struggling to find another job. Anne offered me a job with good pay, so I went along with her plan." Despite her need for money, Miss Johnson felt guilty for assisting Anne in deceiving someone. Because of her guilt, I was able to obtain her testimony. She also gave me copies of receipts, daily reports, and her diary from that time. No matter how desperate I was for money, what I did was wrong as a human being. I'm deeply sorry, she repeated her apologies. With Miss Johnson's evidence and testimony, I decided to gather more proof. After speaking with a few other involved parties and hearing their accounts, I consulted my lawyer and chose to confront David and Anne at the place where they were having their affair. On a typical weekday, I pretended to leave for work as usual and waited near my house. When Anne arrived, and it seemed like the right moment, likely when they were occupied with each other, I returned home and caught them in the act. They panicked, unable to escape, and I spoke coldly. "I know everything now, David." David's expression shifted from surprise to guilt as he looked at me. "I heard you lost interest in your job," Cap pushed aside, "and began to dislike your work. A colleague told me. You were telling your coworkers, 'There's nothing left for me here. Nancy is earning well. I want to quit and live a relaxed life.'" Seeing my composed demeanor, David started confessing hastily. "It wasn't my idea. It was Anne who tempted me. She suggested we pretend to have dementia, and you take care of us while you're at work. We could meet as much as we wanted. Even Miss Johnson was hired by Anne to create an alibi." His words seemed to shift the blame onto Anne, portraying himself as a victim. But Anne's reaction was explosive. "What on earth? David was just as involved in the plan, and now he's trying to dodge responsibility. That's cowardly." "Shut up. You're the one who pushed me into this." "I just went along with it," David fired back. My heart grew colder as they argued, completely exposed. I couldn't bear to witness this any longer. "That's it. Both of you get out." I decided to take drastic action. I threw them out of the living room window, along with their scattered clothes from Anne's purse, then shut the window. Despite their banging and pleas for explanation, I closed the curtains and ignored them. When they wouldn't stop, I sent a firm message on WhatsApp. "Be quiet. If you don't leave now, I'll call the cops." Suddenly, they fell silent. Their constant visits and messages on WhatsApp grated on my nerves in the following days. So, I sold the house and moved to a weekly rental apartment. When David was diagnosed with dementia, I had changed the house title to my name. David, now retired, couldn't pay the mortgage anymore, and I made the change beforehand to avoid complications with decision-making authority in his condition. Selling the house unexpectedly fetched a good price, allowing me to buy an apartment with the saved money. Though I hadn't anticipated this situation, past Nancy had done well. I filed for divorce from David and claimed a fair share of assets. It wasn't about whether he could pay or not. It was a statement of, "You did this to me. I'll never forgive or forget it." After divorcing me, David remarried and now lives in Anne's house. However, it seems their relationship isn't going well. My assumption is that they were swept up in the excitement of their affair. But once they got married, reality hit them. They can no longer just be lovers living together. They have to face the ups and downs of married life, and it must be tough for them. Even if they consider breaking up, both of their parents have passed away, and the house we used to live in has been sold. They have no family to rely on and nowhere to escape, so they're left to deal with everything on their own. Frankly, I couldn't care less. I believe they got what they deserved. Thanks to Miss Johnson's revelation, Anne's facility lost its license and was shut down. It turns out the facility wasn't making enough money to repay the loans they took out when they opened, so Anne now has a lot of debt. It seems like a fitting punishment for a sister who stole her own sister's husband. As for the quack doctor who gave the fake diagnosis, he faced consequences too. After the incident, his staff, including Amy, quit one by one, making it impossible to keep his clinic open. It turns out he was issuing false medical reports for profit, just like he did for David, and this led to his downfall. Learning the truth shocked me. I realized how outrageous some doctors can be. But I also had to admit my own fault. I was too trusting. I took my sister's word and the quack doctor's claims without questioning them. According to Amy, I'm too kind and trusting. I don't like to doubt people. But now, I'm reflecting on that. I realize I need to be more skeptical and think for myself. Amy seems to have found a new job at a large general hospital in the neighboring town, and she's doing really well there. Her experience from working in a New York hospital is highly valued, and she's already earned the trust of her colleagues. She seems to be enjoying her work a lot. On Amy's recommendation, Miss Johnson also started working at the hospital cafeteria, which is great news. Amy's eyes light up whenever she sees my puppy playing with a ball. I brought him home about a month ago, and he's become my precious companion, comforting me after long days at work. Since I got him, Amy has been visiting my apartment more often. She claims it's because he's so cute. But I know she's also worried about me, even if she won't admit it. Even though I've lost my husband, I'm grateful to spend this wonderful time with my best friend. Being single and enjoying the company of another woman doesn't sound so bad after all.